The thing about TikTok is it's not a glossy app. You need to marry your glossy, shiny content with really, really organic, behind the scenes, like bare bones, raw footage. They want you to be really honest and real, which is kind of why I love that app the most. I had to kind of make sure I hooked them immediately with something almost provocative or a gag or a funny joke or a really arresting visual image. You can't start on this languishing, beautiful, wide shot. Everything has to hook your audience immediately because you will lose most of your viewers after, if not 1 second, like definitely by 2 seconds. I should have been posting as I was writing it. I should have been posting the whole time. When people say start today, like start posting today, it really is what you should be doing.
Ali Morgan, welcome.
Thanks, Julie. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to talk to you today too, because I think you're a really great example of the future of storytelling. I want to talk to you about your TikTok series, Girl Crush, but also really dig into why you made it, what you learned about storytelling, and particularly what you learned about reaching audiences in the digital age through making that series. So to start, can you just tell us what Girl Crush is?
Yes, Girl Crush is a 15-part musical TikTok series. Jessie, who is this struggling musician with writer's block, is hiding away from the world by working behind a candy bar at an old, rundown independent cinema. And she's dealing with a heartbreak because recently her boyfriend and songwriting collaborator broke up with her and totally crushed her spirit and changed her world. Suddenly, this musician that she really idolizes, her name's Brianna, starts working there as well. And through getting to know Brianna, she actually starts to be able to write music again. And she realizes that actually her feelings for Brianna might go deeper than just being a fan. She might actually be in love with this woman. So it's a bisexual coming of age love story.
A 15-part bisexual coming of age story. You originally created Girl Crush as a TV series and then
Yes.
changed it to a TikTok series. Why did you make that change?
At the time, I was studying my Master's of Screenwriting at AFTRS, and I'd been really wanting to crack into TV storytelling. And I'd been noticing the trend that short films weren't being funded so much anymore. The more I spoke to other screenwriters in the biz and also looked at Screen Australia, I was getting the sense that web series was really where emerging creatives were cutting their teeth. And TikTok is such a great space for queer content, really, because I think queer people are kind of used to not really being accepted in the mainstream anyway. And we're quite used to having to search for our stories. I was an emerging creative. I didn't have a body of work. I'd made a few short films, but I really wanted to show that I could handle episodic storytelling because I think there's a whole lot of craft that goes into that too, like having to write hooks and having to sustain drama over, multiple vignettes. And so I decided to scale it down, do a kind of concentrated version for TikTok. It was the first time I've ever gotten Screen Australia funding, so it felt really huge for me in my career.
And with TikTok, they've got some pretty amazing music rights deals as well. So you can actually have access to music on the platform that you couldn't necessarily have gotten if you were producing the TV series. When you went from 30 minutes to 60 seconds, what did you change fundamentally about the story?
I had to really decide what I was going to say as my core. Like I had 15 minutes, so I was like, what is the core of this story? What is the heart of the story? What do I really want to say? But also, what's going to be really impactful on screen and look really engaging? So I cut a lot of the supporting characters. Initially, my full length series had a mother and a best friend and all of these other people in her more personal world. But I stripped all that back. I was like, okay, we've got three core characters. We have the manager of the cinema where she works, and then we have Brianna, who is her love interest. Oh, and then we do have the boyfriend as well, who kind of makes a fun surprise entrance. I had to cut all of these characters, which was really hard. I held on to the best friend character for so long. I actually kind of had to have an intervention with my producer who was like, let it go, Ali, let her go. She will be in the full length version. Because I wasn't really sure without the best friend character, because she was such a clear device for us to hear all of Jessie's inner thoughts. It's really great when you have a best friend because you can just get your character to just sound off all they're thinking to that person. But And so I was like, if we cut her, I don't really know what she's thinking. But that's where I got to really use the musical element really strongly. So all of her inner thoughts kind of came through in the end through the musical numbers. I also decided that we're going to just mainly stick just to this candy bar setting because that's really, that's one location. It's cheap. It looks really nice on screen. We wanted to put most of our production value into the musical numbers. We were like, okay, we want to be able to spend most of our time on the day changing hair and makeup and throwing glitter around rather than driving here and there. So those were the biggest things, but also the tone shifted a lot. It became a lot more really overt comedy. It was more of a dramedy in the full length version because we spent more time with her in her private world. But in this version, it was like it was comedy. If anything, it actually leaned almost towards sketch at times. Some episodes I wrote purely for one song, which I knew would be a great comedy song, and comedy songs were really popping off on TikTok at the time. I was really inspired by Tom Cardy, who's an Australian writer who makes comedy songs on TikTok. I love his work. So I was really trying to tap into this hybrid audience of queer people, but people who also like musical comedy, which is actually a Venn diagram that is very, very much overlapping. But yeah, so the tone shifted a lot, which was actually great because now I've discovered this comedic tone that I'm bringing back into the full length version that I probably wouldn't have found if I hadn't have adapted it.
When you watch Girl Crush, you can see how poppy it is. You use a lot of visual effects. The colors are really bright. Was that a deliberate strategy to stand out on the TikTok platform?
Yeah, it was kind of a double-edged sword, actually. We had to sort of make that choice because TikTok is really mainly organic content. It's a lot of, just phones. And we were worried that people were going to maybe think that it was an ad. Like, if it's too glossy, you actually risk alienating your audience on TikTok because they're not used to really polished content on there. But at the same time, we did also have this kind of more grand scheme approach where we really wanted this to be also a series that spoke to our skill sets as creators. Like I wanted everyone in my HOD team to feel like they were empowered. And so Karina, who was our cinematographer, is an amazing cinematographer. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna force you to shoot on a phone. That feels cruel. Like, what do you want to do? And she was like, I want glossy. I want it to be like all the musicals I love because Karina loves musicals like me. And so we were like, okay, let's go ham. Like let's make it that the reason why we stand out on this app is because we are a point of difference. And we do make the most of the vertical screen, which was kind of a whole skill set that we had to sort of learn on the fly as well. It's funny how things translate in a vertical format compared to landscape.
Can you actually give us a bit of detail about that? When you're shooting for vertical, what do you have to consider differently in terms of cinematography?
Karina made sure we had a really wide camera. Like she got an Ari Alexa Mini LF large format. So we went with a really large camera so that if we wanted to have a full body shot, it was possible. And if we wanted to have like lots of dance moves, we didn't like lose any of that detail. Also, it got us we could add cool effects like fisheye lenses and things like that to really make the musical numbers pop. One of the episodes, Samantha, Andrew, and I are sitting on the candy bar, and I was like instinctively swinging my legs, like as you do when you sit in a candy bar. And Olivia Alexowski, our director, was like, "Whoa, Ali, you need to stop. The legs are like coming at us. Like you need like just movements like that, which wide you wouldn't really notice. Was like, oh, that's a lot of movement. We kind of had to just work it out on the fly.
And when you're editing for the vertical platform, did you edit off platform or do you need to edit in the platform?
We did edit off platform, but for a lot of the marketing, we edited in platform. Nicole Thorne, our editor, did it pretty traditionally, but just changed the aspect ratio. But yes, a lot of the marketing though was done in platform because that's where you can use the viral songs and the viral trending sounds, and you can use a lot of the kind of in-house features that TikTok has, which can kind of help.
What is different about the audience experience on TikTok, and what did you have to consider?
The biggest thing was that when you're on TikTok, everyone finds their content really from this thing called the For You page. That's TikTok going, hey, we think you'll like this video. It's similar to other videos that we've seen from the algorithm that you like. But what that means is it will send you stuff completely out of order. Like we couldn't trust that people would magically receive the first episode in their For You page. They would probably, chances are there would probably be delivered the 12th or the 13th, because that by then we would have built our audience and been going hopefully a bit more viral. So I was really conscious from right from the start that I had to craft these scripts without assuming that anyone had seen any of the others beforehand. And so, in a way, it kind of took more of a traditional screenwriting route, almost like a sitcom. Like every episode, I tried to make sure had an insular problem of the day that they had to solve. There was an immediate new problem in that world, in that episode, that got resolved. I made sure every little episode had its own little satisfaction, like its own little arc, so you felt satisfied at the end of it in and of itself. So that if people were only tuning into that one episode, at least they'd be like, that was slay. I'm gonna like that and comment and be like, sick. Like that's kind of what I wanted to capitalize on. And if people stuck around, that's great. So then I also was like, okay, how do I make them go to the other episodes? Or how do I make them go, what is this? I want to see the first one. There are some hacks with TikTok. So you need to catch them instantly in the first second. You can't start on this languishing, beautiful, wide shot. I've seen some content on TikTok where I'm like, bless your cotton socks, that's not going to pop off. I'm sorry. Even though it looks gorgeous. We couldn't be like, this is the cinema. I had to kind of make sure I hooked them immediately with something almost provocative or a gag or a funny joke or a really arresting visual image. So the first episode opens with this gorgeous shot of Samantha Andrew, like backlit, hair flowing in the breeze. That was our grab for that one. Episode 2 starts with me training the character Brianna, and my first line was, "This is my first time." And then I go, training someone. But I wanted people to be, on their scroll, and then someone says, "This is my first time," and everyone's like, "What? Your first time having sex?" Like, that's what I wanted people to have, that sort of a reaction. Or there was another episode which we had a lot of fun with where it was Cheap Tuesday. So we had the episode opening on Brianna being like, with red slushy on her shirt, and she's like like gasping for air, and you think that she's been shot. You're like, is that blood? What is that? And then we later reveal that it was red slushy. So everything has to hook your audience immediately, because you will lose most of your viewers after, if not 1 second, like definitely by 2 seconds. And the TikTok app actually doesn't do a great job at letting you know genuinely how many views you're getting, because they will count someone watching it for 0.1 seconds, I believe, as a view. So you can't be like, wow, we got 1,000 views. Like, probably you didn't. That's very generous of the app to say that, but you probably did.
There's been some criticism from YouTube about that as well, that actually the views are exaggerated to how many people really watched all the way through. There's so much talk at the moment about television needing to capture people in the first 2 minutes, but TikTok is really that on steroids, right? You're saying you've got
Yes.
1 second.
Yes, exactly. 1 second. It's really quite intense, but it's really a great writing challenge to be like, how can I be funny instantly? It's great. And similarly, I couldn't just write gags for the sake of gags. Like every single line in the script, because I only had a page, had to tell you 3 things about the character. It had to set up the tension in the next episode, and it had to be funny. It was a great challenge because I saw just how succinct I can actually be with my writing, and how punchy the jokes actually can be, and how visual gags are so great too. I learned so much. I've actually think my long form writing is better because I was forced to fit everything into 1 minute. I actually have a lot of respect now for people who write ads. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, it's such great craft training in terms of all of those elements. Like you say, you really just have to make it so concise. And one of the other things I love about your story, Ali, is that you did something I'm so passionate about, is you greenlit yourself. You're a graduate, and rather than leaving your television series in a drawer and hoping that someone would discover you, you've gone ahead and you've made it. And you've learned a whole lot of things doing it at the same time. It's really impressive.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. The process of doing this release taught me a lot more about actually valuable, engaged audiences versus just big, shiny numbers. The likes are a really good indication of how many people are genuinely engaging, and the comments. And some of our episodes, we got like 5,000 likes and hundreds of comments.
I think what you're saying is something really interesting that we've gone past, it seems now, the time of mass media and actually moving to an era of micro niche audiences that are really passionate is the way forward.
Yes. It was less successful than I initially thought it would be, but I actually think it was more valuable. And I now know genuinely, because I think that's another thing. Some people, some of it is luck, and it's all well and good to strike success on your first episode and get a million views and be like, oh, easy, great. But I actually think because we didn't have a million views right off the bat, I had to learn how to really cultivate that audience online and how to, if I wasn't doing it in the episodes themselves, because we only actually had 15, that's not a lot of posts, how was I going to cultivate those audiences in the marketing? And so, yeah, I'm actually kind of in a way glad that we had to like really build that audience ourselves.
So let's talk about your marketing strategy. What did you have in place, and also what you've learnt that you would do differently next time?
Yeah, so we kind of knew this rough figure going into release that the algorithm likes you if you post at least 3 times a day. That is a lot. And we only had 15 episodes. So realistically, that's not going to make much of a splash at all in the internet. So your marketing is as important, if not sadly, in a way, like more important than your actual episodes themselves. So as soon as we could, as soon as we had picture lock and the series done, that was about January, and we were releasing end of February. I was like, okay, I have 2 months to cultivate this audience. So I started posting pretty much as soon as I could. And you have to kind of sink a lot of time into the app itself to teach the app what your audience is, because I needed to understand how they were thinking. I'd already done a lot of research when I was writing it, but by that point, my algorithm was almost more like screenwriting inspiration videos than actual, like, I need to know what the queer girlies are watching on this app. And so I I started just I just every day I would type in the search bar queer girlies, bisexual, in a way just to teach the algorithm that that's the kind of content I needed to see. And then I started getting all of the niche queer content popping up on my feed, and that's when we were really like that's when we were in business, because I could see all of the queer viral sounds, which is like all of the queer singer-songwriters that are popping off on the app at the time. At the time, Renee Rapp, who is a lesbian singer in America, she was going viral. Every time I posted, I linked a Renee Rapp song. And I was tagging all of the hashtags that the queer women that I could see on the app were tagging. So hashtag WLW was really popular, which means women loving women and all that queer slang. As much as we could, we posted 3 times a day up until release, which is a lot of content. And we had a mix of content. Some of it was really organic, like I would just make something using a viral sound on the fly, or some of it I tried to make as much as possible moments in our series into memes. So I would kind of capture a moment and then see like POV, your crush talks to you for the first time, but you forget how to speak, was one of the videos. And then people were commenting like, feels, that's so me, lol, like things like that. But actually, what was really funny was I was like killing myself, like crafting all these memes, which I was like, these are beautifully shot memes, like they're the most gloriously filmed memes you've ever seen. But then I was like, I had this moment where I just snapped and I was like, I am sick of this. I'm sick of people not following. So I tagged a Renee Rapp song. I put some like footage of Girl Crush in the background, and I I wrote this caption on the video, which was like, okay, listen, if this is on your For You page, I know that you're either bisexual, gay, or you're curious about it. So just follow my page, because I'm about to release a series in 2 days and it will be good for your queer soul. And I got like 3,000 people being like, all right, yes, ma'am, like followed, like say less, people were like, sure. Because at that point I had like gotten to know my audience so much that I was like, I know that only queer women are getting this sound on their page, and like I've made this show for you. It was good doing all that research in a way, because it really paid off. And then we also coupled our release with an in-person activation event. My team really loved Queer Screen, Mardi Gras Film Festival. They've really championed all our short films in the past, and they're just so great at building community, especially in Sydney, and especially for queer emerging creatives. So thankfully, they loved Girl Crush and they were willing to put it in their bisexual short film category. And that was great because it lined up perfectly with Sydney Mardi Gras and right when we wanted to release. And so we were able to, with their help, promo the show to Sydney queer people, which really was like our prime audience. It's where we shot the series. I'm a Sydney queer gal, like, and I'm bisexual, and so all of these kind of grassroots supporters came to this event. It actually was so great. We sold out the cinema, had to upgrade to a bigger cinema. And so we had all these like actual real life people loving the series and talking about the series. And I really think that helped a lot because we were able to say on the day, hey, we're releasing the first episode tonight. Can you give us a hand? Can you go to the TikTok page and can you like and share the episodes? And they did. And we have people being like, I love this at Mardi Gras Film Festival in the comments. I really do think that that focus on community and focus on local community and those people is really important because that's really who it was for. Like, I'm glad that people in the UK and America liked it as well, but really it was for my Australian queer people who rarely get content made for them. So I'm really glad that we did that. But yeah, it was a lot of planning. We used Notion as our way to plan our content. We had this huge spreadsheet, and it was a lot of manpower. My producer Hugh and I split the posting, so we would kind of go day by day. I would do one day, he would do a day, and it was really quite intensive. This is another tip that actually people need to know. The more that I posted, because I'd made all these beautiful memes, and I was like, why aren't we going more viral? I have so many memes. And then Elise Adams was like, it's because no one's seeing you, like no one's seeing Ali Morgan, the person who made it. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. So I started doing more really organic stuff where I showed my face and I did lip syncing videos. Like there was one of the sounds was that was going viral at the time was Beyonce's Baby It's You, you're the one I love. And so I wrote as a caption, when the girl you have a crush on at the cinema asks you who you're interested in after you've literally written love songs about them. And it's like, baby, it's you. People loved that. The more I showed my face, people really loved it. And then I was like, oh, okay, you need to marry your glossy, shiny content with really, really organic, behind the scenes, like bare bones, raw footage. Because the thing about TikTok is it's not a glossy app. It's not like Instagram where you'd maybe go to Instagram to kind of post how shiny and pretty your life is. TikTok is about like, oh my God, I didn't clean my room today. I'm a disgusting mess. Like it's very organic. They want you to be really honest and real, which is kind of why I love that app the most compared to the other ones. And so I started then posting a lot of the behind the scenes footage that I had and doing a lot of chats to camera. And that sort of content was, I think, what made the series in the end do as well as it did. I think now that I know that, I should have been posting as I was writing it. I should have been posting the whole time. I should have been like putting up my camera and going, hey, I'm trying to write a musical and I've just written this song. What do you think? Like I should have, from the very beginning, had them on that journey because then they would have been like, wow, we saw you write this song and now we've seen the full product. This is amazing. And so I think that taught me a lot because I thought that you had to be really ready. Like I thought you had to be very put together and composed and shiny and look really professional to work on TikTok. But really, like, that's when people say start today, like start posting today, it really is what you should be doing.
I think that's such a great lesson because I think that's one of the things that, more established media are struggling with, that feeling of exposure that you get from being raw and understanding that the idea of quality and communication is different on different platforms. And if you want to build audiences, like you say, just turning up, just saying it.
Yes, exactly. And I think what's funny is, ironically, I know I said, oh, TikTok's different to Instagram in that TikTok's less glossy, but it's funny because there is almost this delay where content from TikTok goes to Instagram. And I think Instagram is hungry, as you say, for that honest connection too, because once that content finally goes onto the Instagram, it also does really well because it feels like a breath of fresh air compared to all the other glossy stuff on Instagram that you usually see. So I think it is a good rule, blanket rule across the board.
Yeah, but it is also about being platform specific, isn't it? Like, where are you really posting? What does that audience want? And even though that might mean more clips, like really thinking about the quality, the level of communication, the level of reveal. Like, TikTok is that very honest platform, but LinkedIn probably isn't that level of honesty.
You're so right. Actually, LinkedIn is the one platform that I feel is definitely very different. The tone is very different. So you probably don't show people your dirty laundry as much on there.
So let's summarize the things that you learn about building an audience from TikTok. Start earlier. You need a whole lot of clips. You want to be authentic. Start strong on your clips. What are the other key takeaways that you've learned?
Really get to know your audience, be really clear on who that is. So for me, it was like queer Australian women was my priority, and not be afraid to have a clear idea of who that person is either. You're not going to alienate people by being specific. It's actually better. And you probably need a social media person, if I'm being honest. I think I had to release it all myself. I learned a lot, but gosh, it was tiring, and I really want to be a writer. Like, I don't want to be a social media manager. I could be now because I have all the skills, but like, you can hire that person. There are people who do that. And so if you want to put that in part of your budgeting plan to bring on that person, yeah, because marketing is half the battle. So making sure someone is on set capturing marketing footage the whole time is important. I'm lucky that I was filming a lot on set, but if we had have had someone dedicated specifically to that, it would have helped a lot.
Yeah, that role's emerging in television, and the name it's been given at the moment is community manager. But you're right, they've got to come on early. They've got to be part of it. Really, even I think part of the development process, like getting that organic build all the way from the beginning. And it is one of the adjustments too that's happening. There has previously been this idea that you make television and keep it really secret, and then only release it sort of a few weeks before you go to air. But that's changing. It's just not going to cut through in this really crowded marketplace. Can we talk logistics? Because I really
Yeah.
am interested to know how you financed, how you shot, what time you had. So you said you shot 15 minutes. How many days did you have to shoot that?
So we had 6 days. We did 5 days back to back. Then we had a weekend, and then we shot on a different location. So we did everything across 5 days in this one cinema, which luckily also had a back office, which we used as like my boss's office. And it also had this kind of cinema that had been kind of gutted out, which worked well for the gig venue at the end. So we were able to capture everything in one location, which was really amazing.
So you're essentially shooting 2.5 minutes a day. I mean, that's very not much for TV. Often TV is shooting 6 or 7 minutes per day.
I mean, we were learning, so it felt like a lot to us. We gave ourselves a lot of time to do hair and makeup and like very fun costume changes and to vacuum up all the glitter that we threw around.
And in terms of the budget, what was your budget and where did you get the money from? And were people paid union rates?
Yeah, so we got 75,000 from the Screen Australia Every Voice initiative. And then we got a further 10 from Create New South Wales for development. So that was like 85,000. And then we had a lot of in-kind support from Panavision and Spectrum Films as well that did our post-production and sound. So really like it would have cost about $110,000, and everyone was paid, yeah, union rates. Yeah, so it was about 7,000 per episode roughly.
And how big was your crew?
That's a good question. We had our DOP, we had our lighting and gaff. John, he was amazing. So he brought Legend. He was like, I have a van with all the gear you need. Like, he had so much lighting. He was like, just pay me for my time. You can use my gear. Bless him. Love you, John. And then we had our two camera assists. And we also had Steph Burdick, who was really good at Steadicam. Camera assist, two lighting assists, Steadicam. So we had a sizable team. We had our, like, two people in art department, two makeup artists. It wasn't as big as a TV crew, but it wasn't like a skeleton crew. It wasn't just like one cinematographer and Olivia, the director, and me. Like, it was decent.
So from what you said, I'm going to say crew of around 15 to 20, and you had 4 cast. That was your base.
Yes.
It's good to know because I think it is important when you're in this space where the budgets are lower, what you're shooting, but also what you did that was really smart is you made sure that that was doable in a Hollywood wrap. You limited your locations and you put your money into things like the dance numbers and the glitter.
Yes, exactly.
Can you share if you made any profit on the back end?
No, we didn't make any profit. TikTok, we don't really make profit, sadly. If we grew that audience a lot, we could start to make profit. Like once you hit 100,000 followers, you can make profit through brand partnerships for sure. I mean, you can even start to do brand partnerships at 20,000. We didn't do any brand partnerships, but you don't, in Australia, we don't have the thing where creators themselves get paid on TikTok. That's actually only in America, I think. It's called the TikTok Creator Fund, where you literally get paid for your views, similar to YouTube.
And to build that up, you'd have to keep producing content under the Girl Crush banner. So it's sort of, unless it suddenly took off, it really is done for now.
Yes, and that would also be a choice because I think there is a distinction. Like we're not influencers. It's mainly influencers who make money on TikTok. I think you can definitely be smart about it and go. We could probably look to partner with brands like Rode microphones or like camera brands like that sort of a thing. It is separate to being an influencer, but I definitely think if you wanted to build up that, if we kept producing content, we kept posting it on the same page and we built that up to like 100,000 followers, we could definitely look at being able to make some good money moves at that point for sure.
You're in the under 30 bracket. What media trends are you seeing in your age range? And what do you think television producers aren't quite getting about the content and shows that you want to watch?
It's a big question. I might speak Australia specifically. There's a lot of grassroots comedy and interesting storytelling trends in like the sketch world and the theatre world that I just think we're just missing out on. I think it's hard. It takes a lot for a comedian to be able to sell their brand of humor these days to an Australian funding body. Sometimes I guess the people in power, like, I don't really get the joke, but there's kind of a niche, especially if you are chronically online, like I am. You develop a whole niche set of languages and like humor that I think they are missing out on. I think people kind of turn their nose up at coming of age stories a little bit, or they go, oh, that's YA. Like, I think the 20-year-olds kind of get neglected because they're not YA. They are young, but they're not like 16, 17. And their stories are valid and we're still coming of age in that space too. So I think those stories, it's a shame that it takes so much to sell them because I think they could actually be really interesting and really unique.
Ali, are you saying there's
Mm.
like a generational change in language and comedy that isn't necessarily being understood or recognized by the decision makers at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think that because it maybe takes so long for 20-year-olds to just develop the skill set to like make a TV show, if you championed like young 20-year-olds a little bit more and mentored them a little bit more, you could be tapping into a whole market that gets overlooked.
So you greenlit yourself. What has it changed about your life and your career trajectory?
Now that I've made Girl Crush, I can walk into a room and I can be like, I have something I can send you, which is huge and has done a lot for me. Just being able to show people my actual style and tone. I know some fundamental things that maybe people would doubt if I knew if they didn't know me. So it's like I've done a thing and you can take me seriously, I swear. But also it's been a good display of my of the kind of work I want to make going forward. It's been invaluable. It's honestly changed my life. I now know how Screen Australia works. I now know how Create New South Wales works. Like I've been able to get through all of these doors that before I was knocking on but not really let in. So it's given me a lot of great momentum and it's nice when you start to see your work pay off and people have been enjoying it. I've been able to take meetings. Like it's done a lot. It's done a lot. I would really recommend people make web series.
From my perspective, looking at you, you've proven that you can deliver. You've proven that you can get something made and it is something to talk about. Like, we wouldn't actually have anything to talk about if Girl Crush was still sitting in your drawer at home.
Yeah, totally. You don't need to keep it safe and wait till the perfect opportunity. Like just start making stuff. Because once you actually start making the thing, that's actually when you learn the most. You're not going to learn anything by keeping it in a drawer.
I'm such a big believer in correcting in motion. Once you're in motion, whether it's messy or not, like, you can actually do a whole lot more and change things. And you know
Yes.
what? Let's just say you'd made Girl Crush and it had been a disaster. You still would have learned a whole lot from it. Like, there is no real downside to having done it, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The flops are great. When you fail, that's so amazing. That's so good. I'm glad I did Girl Crush. I realized how much I also didn't know, and I've been able to go learn those things. Like I wouldn't have had any idea if I hadn't have just started.
What's the best advice you could give for someone looking to make a series on TikTok?
I would ask them really detailed logistical questions. So I probably wouldn't make only 15 episodes again. I'd probably like to make at least 30 because 15, it's not a lot of minutes and you need to post a lot on that app. So how many episodes are you making? What is the actual story? The episodes that did well were the ones I was most worried about not doing well because they didn't have a shtick. Like it's funny, the ones that had a really clear shtick joke, like a really clear joke, people were like, haha. But it was the ones where, like Brianna and my character Jesse just sat and talked that did so well. People were like people were like, oh my God, they're flirting. Like people found it so entertaining. And it was so funny because I thought they would flop. So that just told me that story is champion. Like you can't just make a story in 30 parts and just splice it up. Every episode has to be crafted and the story has to be clear. Like this was a rom-com. Like these girls were falling in love and that's why we were watching. And if you don't know why you're telling the story, if there's not a really clear drive, like I think maybe too much these days people just don't know story craft enough. Craft goes into web series. It's not an easier format because it's shorter. I'd be like, why are you telling this story? Who is it for? Who's your audience? How many episodes are you going to do? And then I'd be like, and what is your marketing? Now that I've released on TikTok, I think going forward, I would always release across multiple platforms. We got money from TikTok, which is why we had to only release on TikTok. But I think going forward, I would have released on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts, just because more is more in the online space and you never know. So there's better value in just posting it anyway, even if like the Instagram page, if it doesn't pop off, you might actually find your niche audience. Like I have a lot of friends who are 30 and older and they aren't on TikTok. And so it's sadly did alienate them a little bit. So I think I could have caught them if I did post on Instagram as well.
What's next for Girl Crush and for you?
I've gone back to the full length version of Girl Crush and I'm taking all the good bits that I found in the TikTok series, like all the distinct comedy and the slightly more ham musical numbers, and I've put it into my full length version. So I'm trying to sell the full length version and develop that further. I'm trying to get more into TV, so I'm doing a lot of note taking at the moment. I'm also developing another show. Actually, I wrote a lot of one woman shows before I did Girl Crush, so I'm developing a one woman show about a young person who deals with climate anxiety, which I feel like isn't quite talked about enough these days. So I'm just trying to get into that TV space.
That's so interesting because also the TV space is changing so much, and what television is in the future actually is something I'm quite interested to see. Is getting into the television space for you, getting bigger audiences, writing longer form? What is it specifically that it interests you about it?
For me, it's writing longer form specifically. I'll be curious to see how much my experience on TikTok will inform that and the rest of my career, to be honest. I definitely think I am now really certain of my distinct voice, and I think TikTok gave that to me. And I now know the power of building an audience. So I think I'll make sure I keep doing that. I'm gonna make sure I keep letting people in on my journey. But I think I just love longer form. Yeah, I love crafting those big stories. But who knows? Honestly, TikTok, when we had the meeting with them, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but we were like, why have you given us money? And they were like, well, we want to be like HBO. We want people to come to TikTok because they want to see good stuff. I actually think now I'm less scared of leaning into those more human moments, the moments of deeper emotional connection and the moments of silence, of like where they just stare at each other, like those kind of things. I was weirdly scared of silences on the app because I thought they wouldn't work, but that's what's been great to learn, is that we love that stuff no matter where we find it. So I'm going to give it to them.
I always finish this podcast with asking people to pitch one big idea about the industry that they think would make a great difference. What's a big idea you've got?
I feel like every production company needs to be growing their social media online presence. You've all got the content. I find it odd when I try and click on a production company on Instagram and they've like not posted anything, but they're the creators of these huge shows. Like, I'm really inspired by the Mon and Han girls who made Formal, because they've got like 100,000 followers on TikTok. That's a guaranteed audience no matter what they make. It's not just for the Formal, like they've gone and made Touch, and they're making another full-length show. They've got a guaranteed audience every single time that they've built. And so surely that gives you more sway. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a production company, but surely that would help out when you're pitching to like ABC or SBS. You're like, oh, don't worry, we've got 100,000 people right here. Like, they'll watch it. Like, I just think it would be a smart financial choice.
I love that idea, Ali. I absolutely agree. I think there's so much IP that most established companies already have that they could repurpose, but also how do you create that loyalty around your brand that you can take them with you wherever you go? It's a really smart idea.
It could be used for everybody. I mean, I don't know why acting agencies don't post all the self-tapes and things that their clients have done. Like, I just think in general, everyone needs to just share a little bit more.
It's a changing landscape. The rules are changing and we need to be looking for new opportunities. Ali Morgan, it was so lovely to speak to you. Congratulations on Girl Crush. Congratulations on making it happen, getting it out there, and on everything you learn. And I'm excited to see what you do next. We Interrupt This broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions. Always was, always will be.
We Interrupt This broadcast is hosted by Julie Eckersley and Kirsty Stark. This episode is brought to you by Expanding Media and Crew HQ.